When you think of Disney, what is the first thing that crosses your mind? Images of enchanted castles, lovable animated characters, and heartwarming stories. For nearly a century, the Walt Disney Company has been synonymous with family entertainment, magic, and childhood wonder. But beneath this glittering facade lies a dark shadow that threatens to shatter all the magic of the happiest place on Earth. This is the true story of Disney. Our story begins in 1923 when Walt Disney, a young animator from Missouri, arrived in Hollywood with big dreams and empty pockets. Together with his brother Roy, Walt founded the Disney Brothers Cartoon Studio, which would later become the Walt Disney Company. It's true that Walt's early years were marked by innovation and creativity. In 1928, he introduced the world to Mickey Mouse in the groundbreaking animated short Steamboat Willie. This was the first cartoon with synchronized sound, and it catapulted Disney to the forefront of the animation industry. As the company grew, Walt pushed the boundaries of animation technology. In 1937, Disney released Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the first full-length animated feature film. It was a massive success, cementing Disney's place in Hollywood and paving the way for future animated classics. However, even in these early days, cracks were beginning to show in Disney's magical facade. The success of Snow White came at a cost. Animators worked grueling hours under intense pressure to complete the film. This would set a precedent for labor issues that would plague the company for decades to come. One of the earliest and most significant controversies in Disney's history was the 1941 Animator Strike. Despite the company's growing success, many Disney employees felt overworked and underpaid. Animators complained of long hours, unfair pay practices, and a lack of screen credits for their work. The situation came to a head in May 1941 when over 200 Disney animators went on strike. The strike lasted for 5 weeks and became bitter and personal. Walt Disney, who had cultivated an image as a benevolent employer, was shocked by what he saw as a betrayal by his workers. Disney initially refused to negotiate with the strikers, even accusing some of being communist agitators.
And when he pulled the strike, the first people to smear me and put me on the unfair list were all of the Commie Front organizations.
The strike ended only after federal mediators intervened, resulting in some improvements in working conditions and pay. However, the event left lasting scars on the company and tarnished Walt Disney's personal image. But this is only the beginning. The 1940s undoubtedly left a profound impact on the world, and Walt Disney was also part of it. While he's remembered as a visionary who brought joy to millions, Walt had a darker side that's often glossed over in the official company narrative. For instance, did you know that Walt Disney was actually an informant for the FBI? It's true. From the 1940s until his death in 1966, Walt secretly worked with J. Edgar Hoover's FBI, passing along information about suspected communists in Hollywood. This wasn't just casual cooperation. Declassified FBI files show that Walt provided information directly to Hoover. He even offered up the names of animators and other employees he suspected of having communist leanings. But Walt's FBI connections were just the tip of the iceberg when it came to the company's darker dealings. With the outbreak of World War II, the company shifted much of its production to support the war effort. Disney produced training films for the U.S. military and propaganda shorts aimed at boosting morale on the home front. While these efforts were largely seen as patriotic at the time, some of the content produced during this period has not aged well. Cartoons like Der Führer's Face, starring Donald Duck as a reluctant Nazi, and Commando Duck contain racist caricatures and stereotypes that are shocking by today's standards. The question is, why would a company that caters to children produce propaganda? The answer seems straightforward: to shape public opinion. But the story gets even darker, as throughout its history, Disney has also faced allegations of worker exploitation, animal cruelty, racism, and more. After the war, Disney continued to grow and diversify. In 1955, the company took a bold step into a new realm of entertainment with the opening of Disneyland in Anaheim, California. This revolutionary theme park brought Disney's animated worlds to life and set a new standard for family entertainment, or at least, that's how it seemed. The park's opening day was famously disastrous, with overcrowding, malfunctioning rides, and a lack of food and water for guests. While these initial problems were eventually ironed out, they foreshadowed ongoing issues with crowd management, safety, and working conditions in Disney parks. Fast forward to modern times, and Disney park employees still face major issues. A 2018 survey of Disneyland workers found that 73% didn't earn enough to cover basic expenses each month. Over 11% reported being homeless at some point in the previous 2 years. Meanwhile, Disney rakes in billions annually from its theme parks, and these labor disputes extend beyond the parks. Disney has faced criticism for its use of H-1B visas to replace American tech workers with lower-paid foreign workers. In 2015, Disney laid off 250 tech workers and required many of them to train their foreign replacements, sparking outrage and legal challenges. So, the stark contrast between the struggles of workers and the company's massive profits paints a picture that's far from magical. The saddest part is that it's not just humans who suffer here. Let's talk about a truly disturbing chapter in Disney history that many people aren't aware of: the Lemming Incident. In 1958, Disney released a nature documentary called White Wilderness. The film included a segment purporting to show the mass suicide of lemmings, small rodents native to the Arctic. The footage appeared to depict lemmings mindlessly following each other off a cliff to their deaths in the ocean below. There was just one problem. Lemmings don't actually do this. The entire scene was faked by the filmmakers. They imported lemmings that weren't even native to the area where they were filming. Then they used turntables and camera tricks to make it look like large numbers of lemmings were migrating. For the climactic suicide scene, the crew actually herded the lemmings off a cliff and into the water, where many drowned. This wasn't just bad filmmaking. It was outright animal cruelty, and it had real-world consequences. The myth of lemming suicide became widely accepted as fact, persisting for decades afterward. It's a stark example of how Disney's pursuit of a compelling story led them to fabricate natural behavior and harm animals in the process. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but what about all those heartwarming animated Disney movies? Surely those are above reproach, right? Well, not so fast. Many of Disney's classic animated films have faced criticism for racist stereotypes and outdated portrayals. Take the 1941 film Dumbo, for instance. The crows in that movie, led by one named Jim Crow, are clearly offensive caricatures of African Americans. Or consider the Siamese cats in Lady and the Tramp, with their slanted eyes and broken English, blatant Asian stereotypes that would never fly today. But perhaps the most egregious example is the 1946 live-action/animated film, Song of the South. This movie portrayed slavery-era plantation life as idyllic and happy, with jovial black characters who seemed content with their lot in life. The film was so controversial that Disney has never released it on home video in the US. Yet, elements from the movie, like the song Zip-a-Dee-Doo-Dah, are still used in Disney parks and media to this day. It's not just old Disney content that's problematic either. In recent years, the company has faced multiple accusations of plagiarism. The 2013 hit Frozen was alleged to have stolen elements from an animated short called The Snowman. The creators of Inside Out were sued by a child development expert who claimed the movie's premise was lifted from her work. And Zootopia faced a lawsuit from a screenwriter who said Disney had taken his idea. While these cases were ultimately dismissed or settled, they cast a shadow over Disney's claims of original storytelling. Time passed, and Disney isn't just about princesses and talking animals anymore. They've become an entertainment behemoth, gobbling up other major franchises and studios like Pac-Man on steroids. Think about it. Disney now owns Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, and even 20th Century Fox. That's a staggering amount of pop culture under one roof. When you look at the biggest blockbusters of recent years, chances are Disney had a hand in most of them. But here's where it gets a bit worrying. With all this consolidated power, Disney isn't just creating entertainment, they're shaping our cultural landscape. It's like they've got a monopoly on our collective imagination. And what are they doing with all this creative firepower? Well, mostly recycling their greatest hits. Look at Disney's recent slate of films. We've got live-action remakes of Aladdin, The Lion King, and The Little Mermaid. We've got sequels upon sequels in the Marvel and Star Wars universes. It's like they've cracked the code on how to keep milking their cash cows without ever having to come up with truly new ideas. This is what Guy Lodge in The Guardian called the nostalgia business. Disney has figured out that they can keep repackaging our childhood memories and selling them back to us. And we eat it up. We flock to see these remakes and reboots, even if they're often pale imitations of the originals. It's comfort food for the soul, but it's not exactly pushing the boundaries of storytelling. Now, you might be thinking, so what? If people enjoy it, what's the harm? And that's a fair question. But here's the thing. When one company controls so much of our entertainment, it starts to limit our cultural diversity. It's like having a buffet where every dish is just a slightly different version of mac and cheese. Sure, it's tasty, but eventually, you're going to crave something different. This monopolistic approach to entertainment isn't just creatively stifling. It's got some pretty serious economic implications, too. Disney's size and power allow them to dictate terms to theaters, gobble up smaller competitors, and generally reshape the industry to their liking. It's pure, raw capitalism with Mickey Mouse at the front of it. And not satisfied with just ruling the entertainment industry, the company also expanded its reach into multiple markets worldwide. When Disney opened Shanghai Disneyland in 2016, it made numerous concessions to the Chinese government to secure approval. This included giving the government a 57% stake in the park's management company. Critics argue that Disney is turning a blind eye to human rights concerns in China in pursuit of profit. The irony here is pretty thick. Disney built its empire on stories of underdogs triumphing and dreams coming true. But in reality, they've become the corporate giant that the plucky hero would be fighting against in one of their own movies. They're no longer the scrappy animation studio founded by Walt and Roy Disney. They're the embodiment of the American capitalist dream, for better or worse. But the reality is that the happiest place on earth might not be as joyful as it seems. As we've seen, the story of Disney is far more complex than the fairy tales it's famous for telling. Behind the magic and wonder that Disney has brought to millions of people around the world, there lies a history of labor disputes, cultural controversies, environmental concerns, and ethical dilemmas. What are your thoughts on Disney and the current state of the company? Leave your thoughts in the comments. If you like this story, be sure to check out the dark story of the bank that scammed its company, not just once, but twice. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you there.